going to start with today. Daisy's owner. Who owns Daisy? Right?
I have Daisy. No, Daisy.
Two Daisy. Daisy, yes. Daisy, I haven't seen the dog except back in the very kennel, little dark dog. Right. I'm going to briefly go over the issues that I think are the concern, and then we're going to bring little Daisy up, and I'm actually going to have you go get her. You're going to bring her up, and you're going to kind of sit out here with me for a little bit. We're going to chat, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And then we're going to do a little bit of handling, maybe a little bit of testing, and I will tell you where I think you should go with her in order to make her more permanent home ready. Because here's what I understand. Daisy is in your home as a foster home, correct? And you hope to one day place her in a permanent home. And in this foster home, you have multiple dogs. How many? 4 dogs total? Okay. 5 counting Daisy. Exactly. So Daisy's the foster into your home with 4 dogs there existing, and there is friction between Daisy and the other dogs in a number of ways maybe. I know one way is if you're trying to give attention to one of the, we're going to call them house dogs, to one of your original house dogs. She wants to cut in and say, don't do that with her, correct? Is any other friction between those dogs?
The other evening, I was playing a game with one of my...
You're playing a game with one of the house dogs,
And I got in crossfire. Daisy didn't like it.
Daisy didn't like you playing the game with the other house dog. How do you know she didn't like it?
She bit me.
Well, that's a pretty bold statement, right? So you were playing a game. What kind of game were you playing?
It's a game I call Get Your Bud.
All right. Get your bud? Is that what you say? Right. You know what's okay. We need to know the environment so we can talk about it. Right. All right, so here's what we'll say about that game. Here's what we'll say about the game. You know, it's a good game. I play a similar one. I'd say, get your nose. Same kind of thing. Now, here's what you can say. Very stimulating, high energy game, physically interactive, so we can see how even other house dogs might be saying, wow, that's a lot of juice going on right over there. A lot of activity, a lot of energy. And Daisy came from out of the way into the mix and bit you, not the other house dog? Is that what happened?
She was going after the other house
Gotcha.
dog, but I was in the crossfire.
She was going for the other house dog, and you stepped in between to stop her, and she bit you in the process.
I was mainly just in the crossfire because I was still playing with Princess at the time. Daisy got upset, and
Right.
my arm was going to get your butt, and
Okay, all right. So you're saying Daisy missed the target. She missed the bullseye. She was going for the dog, and she bit your arm instead. Now, has she ever bitten you any other time? That's the only time she's ever bitten you, but has she bitten any other house dogs any other time?
yes.
All right. Do you remember what a specific instance was?
It was
Over food. She bit one of the house dogs over food. And just quickly for me, walk me through it. You're putting separate bowls down for the dogs to eat?
It was actually
Human food, okay.
the dogs were in the kitchen.
All the dogs are in the kitchen, yeah.
I take my chicken finger and was
Right.
walking it over to our daughter's plate.
Right.
My house dogs jumped up and tried to take it from Chad.
Okay, so Chad was walking a chicken finger over to his daughter to eat. One of the house dogs jumped up to get the chicken finger, and how's Daisy factor into this?
Then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but Chad got Bella down on the ground and was in her face, basically, you don't do that to me.
Right. So Chad was disciplining one of the house dogs that went for the chicken finger.
Correct.
Don't go after this chicken finger. Still had the chicken finger?
No.
Okay, chicken finger was, it doesn't make any difference.
Oh, we did have.
Yeah, because that's what it seems like to me. So we got Bella down, chicken finger. Now where's Daisy come in?
Then after it was said and done, we thought everything was cool.
Yeah.
Then Daisy's underneath the table. And then my other dog underneath the table.
Bella?
So I don't know if Bella.
Right, so you don't know. So you got to be very careful here about trying to fill in the blanks. Well, it could have been Bella's frustrated because she didn't get the chicken finger, and you've heard of the term displaced aggression, displaced frustration. She couldn't get back at Chad. She gets under the table and so mad that I didn't get that chicken. And that's very possible. It could be, and I'll tell you this, changing boots back there. Guess who I hear growling at dogs on both sides of her? Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do with chicken fingers. Has nothing to do with mama getting somebody's butt. Has to do with there's dogs on either side, and she said, I want you all to know, don't mess with me, I'm a bad girl. That's right. She said, just so you all know, I'm a bad girl. And what this tells me is her issues, and we consider this, I'm just finishing our second book about the facets of canine aggression. And what I've done is identified 8 facets or 8 categories of hostile display or hostile intention, say. It's all aggression. People get hurt in that storm, in that process, but there are different triggers for this hostile display. And that's how we have broken down the book into sections. Dog-on-dog aggression is different trigger altogether than a defensive dog who feels uncomfortable, threatened when their personal space is invaded, which is different really than a territorial dog who has a very large personal space, say, and they go out of their way to keep all that space clear, which is different than what we're going to term social aggression. Oftentimes you can think of it as a bullying, maybe, where this particular dog in a familiar group needs to keep everybody in place. I want everybody to know that what I feel and what I need is most important. And this, like it is in human terms, is often this behavior, it gets carried away. And so you think, well, and you've probably witnessed before one of the wildlife films with wolves where you see the alpha wolf, male or female, come into the group, and some of the subordinates or the more submissive are going out of their way to raise their leg and show, look here, I'm turning my head up, I don't want any trouble with you, you're the big dog. Now, he hadn't done anything as he's walked in the group. They're going out of their way to show, though, I don't want any trouble with you. Sometimes that doesn't even stop the onslaught of bullying or force. You say, well, why did he follow through with, good, put him down? It's satisfying to the dog that is a bully. It reinforces, so I don't have to deal with this again. Maybe if I keep you down, when it's easy on me, if I show you I'm in charge, it prevents maybe a more intense battle later on. And so when we talk about social aggression, we're talking about those dynamics within the family that involve human members and animal members. And from the things you talk about, we have not necessarily what you brought up when you first came, a possessiveness issue over you, because that's what you suspected. You're looking for information, and what I'm doing is giving you information based on thousands and thousands of dogs we've dealt with, hundreds and hundreds of daisies. Here's what we found with that personality type. And I will tell you that as you describe things, what I have seen so far, and we're going to bring her up and test a little bit more, I don't think it's a possessive issue as much. In fact, she may have possessive tendencies where she says, if it's a treasure, I'm willing to fight over it, I'm going to keep everybody away from it. I got that. But with her charging in to bite the dog in the middle of the game, I think this is more, hey, settle down. You're bothering me. You're getting out of line. You're getting too pumped up. I think with the cutting in, if you're petting one of the house dogs and she wants to cut in, again, it's control. It's all about control of the other dog. Now, you keep in mind, regardless of what brings on this flipped trigger, we don't condone it. We've got to deal with it. But I can understand, Daisy, where you're coming from, but we have to deal with it. And this brings up another subject I want to talk about very quickly with the rescue folks. It is common, and again, I deal with rescue groups month in and month out, very common for me to hear a story like Daisy and say, well, we think she was abused because she is acting out with hostility so quickly, so easily, and so vehemently. Here's what I can tell you. There's not a single day that Mr. Decker and I aren't working with aggressive dogs, dogs that have bitten people, dogs for any reason you can imagine. Not a day out of the year we're not working with aggressive dogs. Let's say we deal with several hundred a year, and that would be a small estimate. It's probably much longer than that, but let's just say just a few hundred a year. Of those few hundred, we actually have, by known history and distinct characteristics in behavior, which we'll talk about, a very small percentage of abused dogs. Very small. And I'm talking about, let's say we have 300 to 400 aggressive dogs we deal with in a year's time. Maybe 5%, maybe less than that, probably less than that. So you say, where's all this aggression come from? I have a good friend here in the back, Dr. Steve Wright. He has a young German Shepherd that I steered him to. I'm proud of that, by the way. Young German Shepherd. How old is she now? 14 months old, female. I went to evaluate her litter at the breeder's house when she was 7 weeks old. Dr. Wright took her on at about 8 or 9 weeks old. She shows, and I'll back up. She is raised with the best of care. The 3 standards of measurement: housing, health care, and diet. She lives better, based on those measurements, than most of the world's population of human beings by far. So, we've known her from the time she was just weaned. Steve took her on just after that. I know Steve. We've been working with Steve for months with this dog. She's aggressive in a number of areas. He said, what are you talking about? She wasn't abused. No, not at all. In fact, the opposite. And not pampered. She has been structured and guided and directed through compassionate, loving, knowledgeable care and actions and intentions, and yet she is hostile in a number of areas. Mr. Decker, would you address her dogs? Thank you. So you say, so abuse didn't factor into her hostility, and I'm going to embellish or add in some details now that may or may not be exactly true with this particular case, but in general it represents her. Very dog hostile. And you say, wow, you mean she would attack dogs and bite dogs? She wasn't socialized around dogs. Exactly the opposite. Exactly the opposite. She has been around dogs all her life. And I don't mean allowed to maul dogs and bully dogs. The opposite. She's been shown how to relax around, play around dogs, hang out around dogs, yet she's dog aggressive. You think, my goodness, where'd that come from? Wasn't abuse, wasn't lack of socializing. That is my point. Most of the dogs I deal with that come here, that people are spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on in training, they weren't abused. People are doing the opposite. They're trying to raise these dogs the right way, and here's what we find. Aggression persists in all these areas. Mr. Decker, my right-hand man here, he has one of the most hostile dogs in terms of aggressive protest or defiance you could ever witness. So dangerous when we met Josh, and again, Josh rescued this dog when he's a little bitty thing. Eyes barely open. He's been the only owner. He started from day one. Wow, I got to get this dog under control. His personality is strong. Even as a little youngster, you pick him up the wrong way. You think, my God, it must have been his mother that abused him. Yeah, I mean, you get down to the point where he's only been breathing air for 4 weeks. He's growling. Nobody did this. Mr. Decker, how old is Basher?
He is 3 years old.
3 years old, okay. 4 years old. Okay, now a long history of correct, and I say this word on purpose, compassionate, knowledgeable handling. And today, you might even see it, we have hostility come up. Maybe I need another dog to push Daisy's buttons. And we bring Basher up, and he's going to be bouncing, listen to Josh. And then Daisy threatens Basher. And Basher says, oh, yeah? And Josh corrects Basher. Basher's going after Josh. Going after Josh. Up the leash after him. And Josh has to protect himself. And Kathy commented on Josh, on Basher, Josh's dog, being so happy this morning coming in with Josh. So they love each other, bouncing and carrying on. I said, you know why that dog's happy? He knows for no good reason he ended up in a man's hands. The only man in the world would probably keep him alive. If it weren't for Josh, Basher would be gone. He'd be hurting people. You say it must be abuse. No, not at all. The opposite. And so therefore, when I evaluate dogs, for rescue groups especially, and we're looking at troubled behavior, problem behavior, and there's suspects of abuse here. There's questions of abuse. And again, occasionally it does happen. But usually I can say, not with this dog. Why you say that, Matt? Because this is a common pattern, a common reaction, a common dynamic that we see with countless dogs with known backgrounds. Behave same way, known backgrounds, no abuse at all, and yet here it is again. And I'll tell you something else. There are breed types, breed tendencies. If somebody brings in a rough-coated collie, or let's say a whippet, and this dog is cowering against the wall, and I say, how you doing, rough-coated collie? You know what I'm thinking here? Whoa, well, I think we had a bad background here. I think we had some heavy handling. I think we had some abuse here. Here's why. It's a rough-coated collie or a whippet. Normally, we don't get aggression of any kind with those dogs. Typically, a whippet, you can cut their tail off, and they'll help you. Well, go ahead and cut off. It hurts, but if you got to, you got to. That's a whippet. Yeah, that's right. Now, also, here's another telltale sign. Loss of confidence. Any dog that's been heavily abused doesn't go out of its way for conflict. Doesn't go out of its way to cut in and start trouble. Just the opposite. This dog has been abused. It may bite you if you push, if you cross the line. They're going to display aggression, but it's not in a confident, tail up, excited fashion. And we're going to watch Daisy's tail. And not that you said she had a background abuse, but again, with a rescue dog, it's important that we figure out as much as we can about what we're dealing with so we can pass on to the permanent home. Here's the best way to handle her, and here's why. I'm going to tell you something else. With this idea of bad background, be careful as rescuers and foster people how you sell this dog. If you sell this dog as been abused, hard life, she doesn't want to act this way, she's been pushed to that point, you know what you're setting up for now? You're setting up for a failed adopted environment, because the new adopted home think, I feel for you. I'm not going to force change in behavior with you because I feel for you. In other words, they're going to accommodate the dog, and they're going to facilitate this aggressive behavior or shy behavior. It could be shy behavior. Bad social skills. Let's say I have a dog that's been locked in a closet, and Lauren and some of these rescuers have come across all kinds of cases. Dogs that haven't been socialized. So being around living beings is painful. Yeah, we got that. But it doesn't change the fact if you're going to function with us, you got to get a grip on that. You say, but Matt, it was a painful background, 6 years in a puppy mill, away from everybody. I got that too. Doesn't change the fact though. If you want to function, and if I can get you in a home, you're going to have a good life, you're going to live better than most people, you've got to socialize better. Painful or not, bad background or not, here's what we must do. Here's what you've got to do, dog, to get to where you're wanting to go. And when you place these dogs in adoptive homes, be honest, of course, about the dog, but I wouldn't dwell on probably a troubled past. This dog can't help it, so don't push too hard. Don't expect too much. Now you got dogs going to come back. Dogs not going to stick because the owners are too leery, too afraid to shape behavior for the better.